much. Robin Brandt, who's in Shanghai. Well, as promised, I'm joined by economist, trade expert Cornelia Meyer, familiar face, runs consultancy MRL Corporation. Cornelia, always good to see you. You were listening to Robin there. You were also in Davos, where I was, the World Economic Forum, where this was being discussed at length because the initial announcement was given while we were out there about tariffs on steel, aluminium, etc. Over the weekend, things have got even more feisty, haven't they, between China and the US?
Yes, and it is disconcerting because really, if you look at it on the face of it, the biggest importer of steel and aluminium into the US is Canada. So China is the fourth largest importer. The reason the US gets hot under the collar, or Trump and Wilbur Ross get hot under the collar, that China is producing more than 50% of all steel and aluminium at relatively low costs. But you know, this is really not, it shouldn't be carried out in an ideal world in a bilateral thing getting into trade wars. We have a World Trade Organization which has dispute resolution mechanisms, and the global trade only works, multilateral trade only works when it's really multilateral. When the biggest players are getting out of it into bilateral spats, that's when you undermine the global system.
And at the same time, this is going on, and there is a spat getting more acute between the US and China, and yet we saw footage there of President Trump's trip to China in November, where he was, I remember, we were live with his speech, he was gushing in Beijing about the special relationship between the US and China. It seems they don't go together. And yet I wanted to ask you, though, Cornelia, about this UN meeting taking place in Geneva. Tell us a bit about this special group meeting and what difference they can make, if any.
Well, I don't think they can make, it's good to talk, as you know, the BT ad, it's good to talk. They don't make it, but what they're trying to do, it's the UNCTAD, it's the UN Organization for Trade and Development. So they're trying to take the whole trade issue, multilateral trade issue, in context with the Sustainable Development Goals, which we should achieve, these 17 goals we should achieve by 2030. So this is putting it into that context, but really when it comes to the dispute and dispute resolution, the WTO is the first point of call.
Because that's the concern, isn't it? If barriers are going up, if there are blockages to trade, as it were, the losers, quite often the losers can be those in poorer developing nations.
Yeah, absolutely. And the losers are, you know, China is a big boy, the US is a big boy. The losers are going to be the Vietnams, the smaller countries who really depend on trade to lift their people now out of poverty. So as I said, a multilateral system really only works when you have global rules and people adhere to the global rules. Cowboy actions are not helpful.
Cornelia, thanks for coming in. It's always good to see you, and we'll see you again soon, I'm sure, to review